Hello! So this evening we are taking a look at the JustFlight Arrow 3 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is the Piper Arrow, or Piper Cherokee as it's also known, PA-28. This is one of the aircraft that was updated by JustFlight yesterday. The whole Arrow family, or the whole Piper Cherokee family, was updated by JustFlight to fix some of the issues that had arisen during the recent Flight Simulator updates. So they are now a joy to fly once again, and pretty much everything in them works as advertised, which is really great. So you can see it's fantastically modelled all the way around. We kind of take it for granted, but this is really something else. You know, the whole family of aircraft are. And we are taking off from Elstree in London. We're going to fly over to Wycombe Air Park. So this is where I landed with the Warrior yesterday, but you will notice if you saw yesterday's video that Elstree has seen something of an upgrade overnight because I went and bought the payware scenery for it. But we're not going to concentrate on that today. We're going to have a look at the Arrow. So if we go and jump inside, it looks very similar to the Warrior, except some obvious differences. It has a constant speed propeller, so there is a propeller RPM lever in the cockpit. It has a Lycoming engine. It's not the turbo Arrow, it's just the normal Arrow, so we need to bear that in mind. Having said that, we do get a manifold pressure gauge down here, and we do get some extra dials around the place, but we'll focus on those in a bit. So we can open a tablet within the aircraft. If we go and have a look over here, we've got aircraft states on. This is the aircraft page that by default it lands on. We've got some aircraft states to shortcut going to, ready for takeoff, start, whatever. We've got some consumable modelling like oil and batteries. We've got being able to switch the pilot on and off. Auto fuel selector, we'll turn that off, so we'll have none of the niceties, thank you very much. What's the other one down here? Oh, that's just turning the yokes on and off. You can switch out the radio kit similarly to the Warrior, so you can have the Garmin GNS 530 and 430 if you want. You can have just the 530, or you can go really basic and have the old school GPS with the old school nav radios, which is what I'm going to use today. You can switch out the HSI for a direction indicator. So if we click the button there, you'll see that that's now changed. But we're going to go with an HSI, a horizontal situation indicator, because they're more useful and easier to use. We can switch on things like chocks and tie downs outside if we want them, so you can see now we have those on the aircraft, and they're really nicely done as well. And we can operate the doors. Obviously we can go click on them as well. We can look through a bit of flight data in here, which is quite useful. And if we close out of there, we get some SimBrief integration. So if you do, this obviously isn't this flight, it's just the last flight I did in SimBrief. So we've got like METAR, we've got the operational flight plan, we've got a summary of the route. So it's all, very neat and tidy. We've got a moving map using OpenTopo maps. It's a bit clunky and slow, but it does work, so can't complain. There's Navigraph charts are in here. So if you are a Navigraph subscriber, then you've got access to them inside the airplane. It works very nicely. We saw the aircraft tab. There's a notepad where you can just write a few notes while you're flying if you need to. There's a checklist, which is really nice, and you can obviously check the various checks off in the categories. It's worth pointing out there's really nice checklists in the airplane too. It's all been done properly, and it changes focus as you would expect it to. And there's a top of descent calculator, which all works nicely, and then there's some settings so you can change the time and the theme, brightness, things like that. So it's all very straightforward. So we're going to turn the tablet back off. We'll have no further use for it today. Let's go and get this ready for flight, shall we? So some people might jump on me and say, oh, you didn't operate the airplane correctly or whatever. I'm going to operate it in a sensible manner, but I'm not going to do this by the book, because otherwise the flight would take twice as long and would bore people to tears. And we're here just to see if the airplane works, not to see how accurately I can follow procedure. Okay, so let's go and turn the batteries on. We'll move the mixture to rich, turn the prop RPM up, and we will turn the starter. Oh, let's just check which fuel tank we're using. Using the right tank. We've got half a tank either side, so we'll turn the engine over. It's burst into life. Let's increase the revs. Let's take it up to 1500. We're just waiting to see. So oil pressure's come up into the green, fuel pressure's come up. It's all looking great, isn't it? I guess the oil temperature will take a while. So we'll pull it back down to 1000 RPM. While we're sitting here. Okay, so engine is running. So we now go, well, will we get the light? If we continue running the aeroplane, the LV light will come on. It's low voltage. That's what it stands for. We'll see a light here saying we're not running the alternator. So if we go and do that, then it goes away obviously, and that won't come on, which is good. There is a light flashing down here. There's an automatic gear retraction system on the Pipers, or not retraction, an alert system that tells you, the state of the gear. Okay, so we've got. Oh, we didn't go and turn the lights on. We should have had the. Notice I said we weren't following the checklist properly. We should have put the rotating beacon light on before we start the engine. We'll go and put the nav lights on. They use a scroll on this side. We'll put the anti-collision lights on already. Okay, over this side of the cockpit we've got the distance measuring equipment. We've got the ADF unit, which is already on. I must have left it on earlier. Already tuned into 433, ready to go. Going to turn on the GPS. It's doing its self-test. We can say enter. OK. It searches the sky for the satellites and it acquires them. Give it a few seconds and then we'll press the nav a couple of times to pull up our longitude and latitude. Come on. Old school technology. The GPSs used to take a while, didn't they? So there we go. We've got longitude, latitude. Perfect. So we'll calibrate the altimeter. So press B. We'll calibrate the HSI, press D, just in case it is drifted. I'm not sure if it would drift on this model away from the whiskey compass or binnacle compass. We're pretty much ready to go. So let's just go and have a look at the route we're going to follow today. We're taking off from Elstree, runway 26. So we're here on the apron. We're going to taxi round, get onto runway 26. We're going to take off, fly a straight line across the airfield, and then turn for 316 degrees. This is the standard departure for GA traffic out of Elstree on runway 26. You basically fly up to the railway line and then fly past McDonald's. And then there's a big road junction. When you get to the road junction, you're basically leaving the airfield and you can go off in the direction you want to go. So we'll obviously be going for the Bovingdon VOR at that point and then turning for Wycombe Air Park, and we'll probably join the circuit at Wycombe, fly in overhead 2,500 feet and then come in for an approach. So it all should be fairly straightforward, but it'll be nice to see how the aeroplane behaves along the way. So we want to go 260, was it 260? Yeah, 260 degrees on the heading bug, just as a reference. So 240 is there, 250, 260. I'm always a bit torn whether acceleration of the knobs is a good idea or not, and it always seems like a good idea until it's not, if that makes any sense. So we've got a low voltage warning. That's because we're running the engine slowly, so we're not doing enough to charge the batteries to, there we go, it's gone out, look. So just running it that bit faster is enough to charge it up. Okay, shall we get on our way? So we'll move the flaps to takeoff position and look out the front, press space. Actually we don't need to, do we? That just puts the visor in our way. So let's taxi down to runway 26. Why is it all the vehicles suddenly have somewhere to go as soon as you're moving? There's been nobody moving on the airfield for the last 10 minutes. It's a shame that the static aircraft are a little bit ropey. I would rather they didn't put static aircraft in scenery, because then you get the proper ones that the simulator injects, and they always look a lot better. Okay, we'll be looking at some hidden functionality in the aeroplane along the way as well. So I'm just going to double check before we start our takeoff roll. It was 316 is the direction we turn to once we've gone over the end of the airfield. Okay, full throttle. And full RPM as well would be helpful, wouldn't it? That's better. Whoa. Pilot-induced oscillation on the runway, that would have destroyed the tyres. I think something went wrong with my controller. I've had various issues with it just recently. And there was a huge glitch to one side, and then that caused a pilot-induced oscillation getting it back out of it. So we're climbing, and we turn. If we look outside, there's the railway line. And we need to get to the big junction. So we continue climbing. While we're climbing, we will go and move the heading bug to the direction we're going. It's interesting actually, we ought to have a look. I never think to do this. To have a look at there's the airfield we've just left. Here's the railway line that we're trekking. I'm terrible at flying the aircraft from outside, but it's nice to look at the airplane sometimes, isn't it? So here comes the big road junction. So at this point, we've essentially left the airfield. And we're just up to 1,500 feet. We're going to climb on up to 2,500. So continue the climb. We'll go and switch on the autopilot. And we'll turn on heading mode. Should allow us now to just control pitch. But once we get to 2,500 feet, I'll show you a secret of the aeroplane, which isn't really so secret. Okay, while we're waiting for it to climb, we can tune into the Bovingdon VOR, which was, if I click on it, 11375. So on nav1 we want 11375. Just coming up to our target altitude. So pull the throttle back, level us out. Whoa, just overdid it slightly. Trimming us for level flight, but I don't actually have to, because I can click this part of the fascia and we now have altitude hold in the autopilot, which obviously is not in the aircraft, and I'm not so sure that I'm happy about that it does that. So we need to get to the Bovingdon VOR because we're obviously racing off towards it at a rate of knots. So if we do this, let's see if this will go from a non-intercept position towards the VOR. So I've said go to nav or omni mode, which means nav essentially. I haven't read much detail about this in the pilot operating handbook, or the aircraft guide you get with it. Advises that you use omni mode instead of nav mode, but it doesn't give you much detail as to why. So that surprised me that this intercepted the route. So we can control this as well. If we put the mouse over this and use the mouse wheel, we can control descent rate. so we can make the aircraft descend. So you can see that moving, each click of the wheel. So I've just done 5 clicks of my mouse wheel, and I've got 500 feet now descending at. So if I go 5 clicks back, or just click on it, it will level me back up again. So we'll wait till we get to 2,500 and click it. No, it hasn't pulled me back out of it. So you do need to be careful. So it's kind of vertical speed mode. Okay, so we're heading towards the VOR. We're 3 miles away. So you can see that happening here. We want to leave the VOR on 234 degrees. It might be interesting to put it in now and to see how it handles the intercept, but we won't. We'll wait for it. So now we're flying along. We didn't put the lights on, did we? Let's put the landing lights on and put the P2 heat on. There's a bit of a debate there about the landing lights. Commercial traffic, it's accepted, you keep the landing lights on below 10,000 feet, but GA traffic, I don't think it's such a hard and fast rule. So the rest of the lights are all working nicely. It's a lovely looking aeroplane, isn't it? It's incredibly stable as well. Okay, so 2 miles to run to the VOR station. How are we doing in terms of the engine modelling and simulation? So it's all looking fine, although the RPM is way up. It's interesting, you read some of the aircraft books, they basically say on these constant speed propellers, once you're in cruise, if you just want to make the cabin quiet, just turn the RPM down and you can have a quiet day, which we're doing. Look, it's an interesting thing. Look, although we've pulled the RPM right back, it's not really affecting the airspeed that much. I'm just going to lift the flaps. I should have done that at the top of climb. So you can see the propeller will still grab the air quite well, even at much lower RPM. So you really are just beating away at nothing. Okay, so we need to change to 234 degrees on the course. So 234, so that's 240. That would be 235. So the reason it swung out right is we hadn't quite got to the VOR, so it was thinking it was going to have to go over there to grab the line in to the VOR, but now it's sorted its life out and it's trying to recover. So it's turning left. It will overshoot slightly. There we go. It lost its signal there for a moment. I think it's fascinating actually that these don't lose nav mode. On a digital version of this thing, it would lose nav mode when it loses the signal and just go to wing leveling. But this doesn't, because it's a hardware selector, I guess. It survives flying through no signal and keeps on going basically with what it was doing. I wonder how accurate that is and what a real aeroplane with this kind of hardware would do. Whether it survives no signal and just picks it up when it does get a signal, or what it does when it has no signal. Okay, so we are charging now over to Wycombe Air Park. So exhaust gas temperatures right in the middle of the gauge. Or no, the red line, I guess. It's not very high at all, is it? So if we were to push this on, oh, there we go. So it's just off the gauge, cold at the moment, which could be a bad thing. It may be that we need to run the engine 75% on purpose. We can pull the mixture back, although we're not at 3,000 feet, so many pilots would tell you don't go leaning it out unless you're at 3,000 feet or higher. Okay, so we should get sight of Wycombe before too long. So we're just passing over Chesham and Amersham. So if we look out the window, there's Amersham going by beneath us. There's the river. If we look out the other side, we will see Chesham. Next on the list will be Holmer Green, then Hazelmere, then High Wycombe. Once we reach High Wycombe, we will overfly the town, overfly the runway, and then we'll do the circuit to come in, just for a bit of fun. And it will give us a chance to see how the aircraft behaves. So we come in across the top of the runway at 2,500 feet, and then as we come around the circuit, we drop the 1,000 feet to get to circuit height. So we'll do all of that by hand when we get there. Just to see how the aircraft behaves, really. How are we doing? Just going past Little Missenden. So you can see High Wycombe is coming, and the airfield is on the opposite side of High Wycombe. Really nice aeroplane, isn't it? So there's the airfield. Yeah. So as we fly over the airfield at this altitude, we will turn. Actually, we want to be at 230 degrees, don't we? So we're almost going the right angle straight away, because the circuit goes out 230 degrees towards that field, then up the Hambledon Valley, and then back round. It turns as we come on the downwind leg. I'm just looking for the features on the fields here. There's the road in, there's the field we look for. We turn back, just missed the industrial estate. So yeah, you can see there's the house. Sorry, it's here. So our circuit will take us in to this field. And then we turn, fly towards the industrial estate, and then we turn into the airfield. So let's... Also, the airfield's over here, isn't it? Yeah. So, sorry. Get my bearings slowly. Slowly but surely. It's odd to see this from somewhere else. So that's where the church is on the hill, and the Hellfire Caves. So yeah, you come in over there, just miss the industrial estate until you get to about here. We turn and go in. It's really odd to see it from this angle. Yeah, there's the building. That's the waypoint. So you're coming in there, turning over to the industrial estate, and then back round. So if we look from outside, we can see that easily. It's fascinating, isn't it, to look at these things. So there's the turning point, look. So you would come across there, over to here, begin your turn, and that should line you up with the runway. We'll see if that works in a moment. Right, so we're just overflying. So get our instruments in view, autopilot off, throttle back to 50%, start descending, go for 230 degrees. So we're coming down to 1,500 feet as we do this. Going a bit fast. So we can use the propeller speed to manage that. So we're coming down, coming down. We're looking out right. There's the Hambledon Valley. There's freight that we need to avoid because of the noise abatement area. Just coming down to 1500 feet, which is perfect. Turn the propeller speed back up. And leave the throttle on 50. So here's the beast, as they call it, I think. Oh no, here it is there, sorry. There's the beast. So we've dropped 100 feet below where we should be, so let's climb back up a tiny bit. So speed is looking better. Doesn't want to climb. It is really reluctant to get that 100 feet back. So if we look at the side, you can see there's our reference point. Obviously, if we could have head tracking and look down the side of the aircraft a bit better, we would see we were over the top of that, what they call the beast. So then we can make our standard rate turn to 60 degrees now. You can tell I've not flown this before. I'm a little bit off all the time with where I should be. So here comes 60 degrees, there's the field, there's the marker. It's interesting actually to try a different aeroplane. Trying to do something accurately in a plane you've never flown is kind of odd. Your muscle memory doesn't really work. You have to just, you're reacting rather than preempting. So let's get the speed back down. So we're just looking to bleed off a bit of speed. We're still lower than we need to be. So there's our turning point. The ADF is working, look. Remember we mentioned about it earlier. So we now aim for the 150 degrees, which should take us to the heart of the industrial estate. We're dropping now to 1,000 feet as we go. Looking out now for Wycombe Air Park. So the gear can come down. Get flaps to first stage. So we're good on the VASI lights. Flaps to second stage. In the right sort of place. I feel like I'm too low, but the lights tell me otherwise. But then you can't trust them in Flight Simulator really. They're a little bit off. So we've gone full flaps. Oh, those stutters were just at the wrong moment, weren't they? little bit off the centre line, but for a first go at landing an airplane I've not been in, that was interesting. Okay, let's go and turn onto the brass and give it some backstick as we go. And we'll go and park up. I love the way they've modelled these swaying around on the suspension. I'll look from outside. You can see the suspension working. It's so cool, isn't it? This has a flying tail. I didn't realise that. It hasn't just got elevator, it's got a moving tailplane. Going a bit fast. Is that a Jabiru? I think it might be. Apparently they've got them at Wycombe. Or is that a pipistrel or something? I can never tell them all apart. I think that might be a Jabiru. Okay, there's a coach in our way, so we'll just stop here. Parking brake on. Mixture to cut off, which stops the engine. We can then obviously go and turn off the alternator, turn off all the lights. The lights should have come off during the taxi. But again, like I said earlier, I'm not following proper procedures on this flight. I'm just functionally seeing how the airplane behaves. Turn the GPS back off, turn the distance measuring equipment back off, turn the batteries off, turn the magnetos off, and turn off the various autopilot switches so the next person in doesn't have any surprises. It's interesting actually that you would expect all these things to be in the off positions, but they're not. So I'm guessing that's where the tablet would come in with it remembering state. You would go and switch that on, and then you would be able to make sure you go around everything and turn all the switches to the off positions properly, which this does. You know, it would be worth testing that actually to see if that's true, if it does absolutely everything or not. But that would be really great if it did, so you get into that routine of going around powering everything up that you need and then switching it off when you come back. Okay, so that was the Piper Arrow 3. It's really cool, isn't it? So obviously this wasn't a very realistic flight today, but I said at the outset it wasn't going to be. We were just playing with the airplane really and seeing how it goes. So if you have been looking at it from JustFlight, I think it's worth it. I got it in a bundle, so I got all of them in one go. So it's I think that's the cheapest way to get them, and I will be flying them around all over the place. And obviously as I'm carrying on with this training escapade that I'm up to at the moment, I will work my way up to flying these properly. So I need to get hold of the full checklists to be able to do that, and there will be videos down the road going through the full checklist and doing it, you know, and operating the engine properly, things like that. So at the moment I'm winging it, and I know some people will be shaking their heads seeing what I'm doing in the cockpit, but that will all be to come. That's all, you know, further down the road. For the moment we're just having a look at the airplanes and seeing what these updated airplanes look like and go like. So there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.